City, and honorable all participants of this special lecture. Welcome everyone to the special lecture with the theme Performance Budgeting and Management, Perspective for Behavioral Public Administration. My name is Shifa Rahmania Komara, and I'm your Master of Ceremony for today. On this special lecture, we have several agendas as follows. First, opening. Second, welcoming speech that will be delivered by Professor Ida Widyaningsih, SIP, MA, PhD. Third, the main event, special lecture with the theme Performance Budgeting and Management, Perspective from Behavioral Public Administration that will be delivered by Professor Il Hwang Jun, PhD, as Associate Professor, Department of Public Administration, Graduate School of Governance, Sungkyunkwan University. Fourth, question and answer section. Next, closing ceremony. Before we proceed any further, let me invite Professor Ida Widyaningsih, SIP, MA, PhD, for deliver the welcoming speech. Professor, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone. We are honored to have you here joining us now. Well, I think we've been working for around 1 year, but it is actually our first time to meet in person. And I think some of you, especially those from undergrad and graduate program in public administration, including the doctorate students, you met him online. So he's real. So there he is, he's coming here now, and I think it is good for us because we've been working with the Sungkyunkwan University, especially in the School of Governance, since 2013. So this is quite long. Under the Korea Foundation E-Global classes. So we've been working with so many different professors, and I think last year we started working with Professor Hwang. And he's the expert in public finance, and you can find his research and publication online. I'll share you his CV, but he's really focused more on the public finance issue, and some research are really interesting and I think quite relevant to the case of Indonesia. Okay, I think, again, thank you very much for being here. And also thank you for the students. I know this is not really this semester's time, but I really appreciate your interest to come to this university and taking this opportunity to have direct interaction with an expert that actually coming from South Korea. Instead of listening to the Korean music and watching the TV, so you will hear directly about the perspective of public finance, and then feel free to have discussion after he delivers his lecture. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor, for the welcoming speech. Without further ado, I invite Mr. Il Hwang Jun, PhD, to deliver the lecture with the theme Performance and Budgeting and Management, Perspective from Behavioral Public Administration. Please give a warm round of applause.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Professor Ida, and thank you faculty for inviting me, and thank you everyone, every students who coming in off semesters and to join my lectures. I feel like here looks like your TV shows that I'm guest, and then I have to talk about some funny stories. But if you look at the presentation title, well, it looks not that funny, right? Performance budgeting and management. Okay, so I'm starting with the kind of the feel guilty about my lectures. Well, first of all, I've been thinking about what topics that I'm gonna be presenting, delivering, because as you can see that as Professor introduced myself, and I'm studying and I'm doing research on finance. Okay? And some of the students who are in my class through the Zoom, and well, it was not really easy to follow up, right, because of the topics. So that this time I'm trying to mingle with some more general, perspectives about the management, about the governance, about the public sectors. Okay. Okay. Well, we can start from the first page of my lectures. Okay. So a brief introductions of myself, and I did a PhD in public administrations and Maxwell School of the Syracuse. And my primary interest is budgeting and financial management, and local public finance, and education finance, and things like that. Something with the monies. Okay, that's my interest and my research interest. Okay, and what I'm gonna do today is actually based on those my articles and researches. Can you back to the previous slide? So, a couple of the Korean. Some of the students, I think they are able to read, right, because of the K-pop, the influences, I know. But it's about some kind of the performance information systems, okay? And then the bottom one is performance information used from the English context. So those are kind of the background about my lecture today, so that trying to expand the audience about these lectures, okay? So, the next page, please. Okay, so I'm gonna give some kind of outline for these lectures, starting with the introductions, okay? Introductions about the topics, then some kind of the background, okay? Background of the why I become interested in those kind of topics, questions, okay? Then some of the, background about the theoretical things about the prior studies, okay? So that, as you can see, that the title is Perspective of the Behavioral Science. So that I'm gonna a little bit explain about that. Then with some example from the current international experience about that. Then I'm gonna do look at from public administration perspectives, okay? Then I'm gonna application to Korean context, okay? So that's kind of the whole outline. Well, I wish I have some kind of the nice slide, because I just realized that, well, a lot of the students, a lot of the people are interested in K-pop, right? And some of the Korean cultures. So maybe I should have introduction or some of the studies about the Korean cultural governance and things like that. Well, maybe next time I'm gonna prepare. So maybe you can ask a question later after my lecture, because I have the keys are really like about the K-pop. So maybe I'm a little bit can answer those kind of questions. But first, I'm gonna do those kind of the PA perspectives. Okay. Right. All right. Before I'm coming to the SKKU, Sungkyunkwan University in Korea, my career was after my PhD in Syracuse Universities. Then I studied assistant professors in the City University of New York. Okay, and then this is kind of the scenes of the. It's not me, but because the school was located in the New York cities, and then they have a lot of the opportunities to communicate with the policymakers and interest groups, all different types of the, stakeholders, okay? And one of the features in the New York City is when they're gonna have audit of the government performance, they're gonna have some kind of the gathering around among the government and think tank and researchers and professors. So what they're gonna do is the government official, they're gonna share the information about what they have done previous years, okay? And then they trying to communicate with the citizens, okay? And they trying to explain what they have done, what they did good, what they did bad, okay? So they're trying to some kind of they're building trust between their different types of the stakeholders. Okay, so that those are kind of their systems and opportunities, and then this is what they call mayor's management report. So that at the time the mayor was the Bill de Blasio, and then they're gonna every single year they're gonna publish those kind of the report, performance report. Okay, and then you can see that those are some kind of their chapters and sometimes some kind of the policy areas, and then every chapters they're gonna have their government officials who are in charge of those kind of system policies and talk with about their what they have done, what they did good. Okay, and as I assistant professor at the time, I involved in those process. I was sitting in one of the sections, which is the performance budgeting sections. Okay. Then, well, there are some kind of the dialogue, conversations between the lectures. I mean, between the government officials and the researchers and professors. Okay. One thing that really kind of remind me or kind of hit me on that session is one professor say that there is no performance budgeting systems. Okay. Well, I was reading all the articles from my educations, and performance budgeting is one kind of the system that the government is pushing for. But the conversation is talking about there are no performance budgeting systems. So that I was questioning myself, ask myself, why? Well, all the text explain about the performance budgeting, but in practical terms, well, professor said, okay, there's no performance budgeting, right? So that's the starting point that I become interested about the performance budgeting. Okay? So that based on that information, I was trying to look at the older articles, back to 1980s and 1950s, and then trying to look at, because I always, become interested about the budgeting, but performance budgeting is kind of the, mixture of the performance management and financial management and budgeting. Okay, so my kind of the intellectual, journey start from that day, and I look at the researchers first because that's what we do as researcher professors. Okay, so I look at the some kind of the recent trends about the performance management, performance budgeting. Okay, so since 1990s, for worldwide, international wide, there has been huge reforms and pushes to result-oriented performance management, result-oriented management. I think someone who studied PA or someone who took any class from the public policy, I think you have heard about the NPM, New Public Management, one time at least, right? That's kind of the strong initiative from the government. Okay, we have to focus outcome, output, not the input, right? We focus on result. We have to hold accountable for what government doing. Okay, so that those kind of the policies and institutions and the legal foundations has been seen all different countries all over the place. For example, GPRA 1993 and GPRA Modernization Act, that's from the United States. And then, well, you can see that with the Korean languages, right? So that's from Korean government's reform initiatives, okay? And then you can see the bottom, in the practical sense, there are some kind of the result relate some kind of government programs like MBO, pay for performance, performance budgeting, and balanced scorecard, okay? All those kind of informations, I was questioning myself based on that. One of the professor, mentioned, addressed, there is no performance budgeting. Okay, performance budgeting and management matters. Well, because we've seen a lot of the reforms. Does that matter? Well, is it good or bad? So I keep asking myself, right, was it successful as a means of the government reforms? Did it help government or increase any organization, any public organizations, okay? So that I look at more articles through the papers and reading the practice, communicating with a lot of the peoples. Okay, then my intellectual journeys. Can you go to? Then first I found the two different camp. I can say the camps. One is public management scholars. They say management matters. Okay, so how are you gonna manage? Really help organization performance. Will better for government. Okay, will better for the citizens. Right. So that they talk about their training matters, or they have to need preparation, or sometimes they have missions. They have different types of the components. So when they're talking about PMS, but generally they're gonna have the mixed findings. Okay, and some people critiques about the self-reported performance indicators. Okay, another camp is they looking at the simple program and policies, and trying to evaluate. And then they just only look at is that positive and negative. Okay? So that if you make a comparison, first one is what component make that happen, make that successful is management scholars' perspectives and public policy scholars' perspectives. They're gonna focus on very accurate assessment about whether that is successful or not. Okay, so that I trying to look at trying to understand two different researchers, and then moving on to next steps about the performance management researchers and previous studies. Okay. So that if you read those kind of the articles and reviews, and then they say that when you're looking at the performance management, there are multiple issues or some component they need to think about. Okay. For example, you are in the universities. Okay. If you want to make your universities better, okay, what will be component? What do you need to think about? It's my questions. Okay. You want to make your department, maybe university, or maybe you're not interested in university. Maybe you're interested in your department. Yes, go ahead.
Of lectures, and maybe to improve the quality performance of lecture, and also the infrastructure of the maybe buildings and another infrastructure of the department. Thank you.
Okay, infrastructures, lectures, something like that. So make the department better. You have to first measure, right? Measure about what do you mean by good department? Okay, what do you mean by good universities? Okay, so people keep saying different types of the core functions, dimensions. Well, people mention that measurement is first one. Okay, you have to measure. You have to think about, well, am I good at my colleges or not? How are you gonna assess? By looking at your GPA, right? By looking at your grade. Okay. The same as organizations. You have to think about the measurement, right? Measurement for organizational, okay? And sometimes they mention about the target or standard. It's kind of the goals that you're trying to achieve, okay? Set the goal. If you achieve the goal, and then you feel like, okay, I'm successful, right? And another part is reward and sanctions. Okay? It's a meaning that sometimes you set the goal from personal perspectives. A lot of times you set the goals, and if you achieve the goals, and then you're gonna give the reward to yourself, right? So same apply to organizational. So make the organization more successful. they keep saying that measurement matters. They have the target, then they can have the reward or sanction. Same as information, standard, behavior modifications, meaning that if you set the goal, if you achieve, and then you're giving some incentives, okay? So those are kind of all the informations, and they are trying to explain, okay, this is matter, this is a really good. It should have those kind of the information, performance management, okay? But, well, recent 20 years or 30 years from since 1990s, and then they say that, okay, goal settings, performance measurement, and evaluations, those kind of the component has been, been better before the back to 1990s. But the problem is, information use is not really explored, okay? It means that, well, you measure about the university's department, okay? And you have the target, okay, this time university target like 20 lecturers we're gonna have, like 30 classes, right? Or all the lectures should have the 90, satisfactions, class satisfaction from the students. They have to set the goal, okay? And then they have system of the reward. For example, okay, faculty who score more than 90, then they're gonna get the extra bonus or something like that, okay? But those kind of the informations, those kind of the components has been, setting up in the performance management researches. But the problem is, all the way they have the informations, but people not really using that informations, right? People not really changing their behavior in response to those kind of information. If not, well, then we're not gonna see any improvement in organizational, okay? So that after, back to 2010, 2020s, whole the literatures exploring that how we can facilitate using that performance informations for individuals, for organizations, right? So then we'll keep studying about those kind of things, okay? So next please. So people are really increasing interest about how they're gonna use that information. Even though they have the information, if we do not use, then, well, things will not change, okay? So that people looking at how we can use and what kind of the component facilitate those kind of the informations use, or some people say reader matters, okay? If readers really emphasize, performance information used, and then organization and all the people trying to use that information, okay? And sometimes participations from the members, participation from the students, participation in each members really matters, okay? And, but I can say that there are still little evidence about how we're gonna make a connections between the use of the informations and actual organization performance, okay? So, recently, people trying to focus on some kind of psychological dynamics in performance informations, okay? That's the starting point of my lectures today, okay? So, next slide, please. Okay. So, when we're gonna see the performance information use, a lot of times, every individual going through some kind of the cognitive process, okay? For example, okay, this midterm exams, I got 90 scores, okay? What does that mean? Is it good? Is it bad? Well, score itself, maybe 90 is good score, but a lot of people make a comparisons, right? Trying to get the real information, real meaning of that 90 scores, okay? By making a comparison between the different students, or maybe previous my scores, right? So that point is, well, information itself does not provide real meanings. People have process trying to understand, okay? Understand and then making comparison, and they trying to process things, right? So that's called, Tversky and Kahneman, they say that because we have different types of the task, and then all the different types of the probabilities, and then they trying to make their simple judgment, and then based on that information, they trying to understand that number, that informations, okay? So that's kind of the coming from the field of the behavioral science, okay? Anyone heard about the behavioral science? Anyone? Maybe next slide. Have you seen those books? Anyone? Notchi? Anyone? What it means, Notchi? What is Notchi? Notchi is like a, yeah, you do that, yeah, show me. Is that? I just saw that one student's, tippings, pokings. That's the notch. Yeah, that's the notch, right? So it means that, well, it's not really older people do some things, right? But it's kind of the, lead them to do some things more naturally. Well, of course, maybe, poking is not the natural way, but, well, the way they're gonna explain is, going back to the previous slide, okay? So that previous, social science, a lot of time, they're gonna assume that we know everything. Okay, we know everything, right? But if you look at the human decision-making process, right, we have very limited abilities, right? For example, well, let's make an example about the going lunch today, okay? Well, if you know everything about the, every restaurant here, every restaurant's price, right? You don't really know about those kind of information, everything's, right? You usually choose a couple of the point, right? And based on that information, you, choose, let's go lunch somewhere else, right? You don't really have all the information about the every detailed restaurants and their menu and price. No, we just pick a couple of things, right? Well, we want to try Indonesian food, Japanese food. Okay, I know Japanese food back to my front office. Okay, let's go, right? We don't really make a comparisons all, restaurants, price, menus. Okay, so that, bounded rationality is kind of the fundamental, things for human decision-making process, because we're gonna make a decision based on subset of few of everything, not every possible scenarios. Okay, so that next one, please. So then, not all behavioral science is they trying to look at human is limited, and then they make a decision based on limited capabilities. Okay, so one of the interesting phrase is the bad is stronger than the good. Have you ever heard or have you tried to make an inference what it means? The bad is stronger than the good. If you think about your memories back to your teenagers here, which memory is much more influential? Successful or failure? Failures, right? Failure is much stronger. Even though it's the same influence, you feel like, okay, that really affect my life. Right? That affect really my emotions, right? Because that's the, one of the famous, propagandas theorems, prospect theories. Even though with the same utilities, people respond differently. Okay. Next one. So that those are all the background information. It took a while. Sorry. Now we are coming back to the public policy, public actions. Okay. Then application public policies. So that these days there are growing interest in those kind of the bounded rationalities of the human beings to the public policy issues. And then you can see that OECD's, and this is the behaviors insight team from the UK teams, and prime ministers, they're gonna run those kind of the upper level management. White House from the United States American systems, they have the behavioral science teams. So they trying to take some lesson from there and they're applying. Okay, next one. So let's take some example. Okay, so looking at those pictures, what does he do? They trying to cut the trees, but we can see that once they cut the trees and then he's gonna fall off, right? So it's kind of to make fun of the variable insight from OECDs, meaning that people sometimes make very different decisions, right? Funny decisions, not irrational decisions. Okay, so that going back, next one, please. Next one, please. So I'm gonna a little bit faster. Okay, so I'm gonna explain about two. Before I'm going to the public policy issues, management issues, I'm gonna explain one thing. Just Costa Rica reducing water consumptions. Okay, example. Costa Ricans. Okay, have you been to Costa Rica? Anyone? No, me neither. Okay, so Costa Rica, their problem is water. Okay, water is very, precious resource. Okay, so that government want to reduce the water consumptions. Okay, so the example here is people using the waters, but they don't care about the reduce the water consumption. But government want to reduce the water consumptions for the citizens. Okay, so what they have done for the Costa Rica government is trying to use some kind of behavioral insight. Next one. Is they bill water consumptions to the citizens. Okay. Previously, they just bill that. Okay, this month you owe like $100 for your water consumptions. Okay, but after incorporating in some kind of the behavioral science concepts, what they're gonna do is when they're gonna show their water consumptions, they show that their neighbors' water consumptions. Okay, so that previously they have $100. I don't know, is that high or lower? Too much, too lower? I don't know. Okay, but when they have some kind of the meaningful, comparable information together, and then they feel like, okay, well, my neighbor spent like $100, but I spent $200. Wow, I spent a lot. Okay, I feel like I need to reduce a little bit more, right? So that they're gonna try to naturally make people think about, okay, maybe I need to change. Okay, those kind of the solution. So that what they found is actual water consumptions goes down. Okay, that's kind of the one example about the Costa Rica's behavioral insight. Okay, going back, the next one. Yeah. So previously he used all the waters, but after that they just the half of the waters. Okay, next one. So it's kind of the same application, antibiotic resistance, so that for the hospitals, well, they use antibiotics a lot, but government wanted some kind of the decrease the uses of the antibiotics. So what they're gonna do is when they're gonna make a comparison between the hospitals about how many they're gonna give some prescriptions about the antibiotics to the patients, and then they feel like in hospital they little bit change of their behaviors. Okay, so that's for example of the UK antibiotics. Next one, please. Okay, aspirin, honey, and rest. Okay, then we're gonna move to another case about the performance management stops. Okay, so first one is the power of the comparisons. Okay, going back. Next one, please. So as I mentioned that, well, number itself does not, a lot of times, it is very meaningless. Okay, so that, well, I mean, the individual, they have to make a, sense of the context to understand what it means. So a lot of times, if we giving some kind of the comparisons, right, with the different types of the organizations or their previous organizations indicators or some targetings, when they comparisons and then they gonna trying to move, right, when they gonna change the behaviors. That's the one of the performance management system from the behavioral science. Okay. Next one, please. Then sense of the autonomies. Okay. Well, with the more discretions, public managers they're gonna try to use their performance information, performance data. Okay. If they feel like okay, we cannot change anything, then they don't have any motivation to learn from the data, learn from the informations. Okay. So that they're trying to give you more flexibilities about the rules and procedures. Sometimes they're giving some flexibility to their choose the informations to collect, some informations to compare, some information metrics for their targets, so that they can really get involved in those new systems. Okay. Then another point is about the anti-public sector bias and distrust of the government data. Well, I think it depends on the context of the countries, okay? But a lot of times, a lot of the citizens and government data, government has some kind of the distrust. People have some, lack of the trust about the government, okay? So that trying to use those kind of the, their, tendencies. So what they're gonna do is, well, this is not only provided by the government, but also it's kind of the private public partnership, so that they trying to show that some kind of the credibilities, okay, about the issues and policies and program, so that people trying to use more performance informations. Okay. Then next one is motivate reasonings. Okay. Well, that term is kind of the difficult to understand, but a lot of times people say that confirmations bias. So meaning that, well, when they're gonna have the informations, if you feel like, okay, this information really aligned with my previous judgment, my previous experience, then they're gonna accept, okay? But sometimes that information, that result, is not aligned with my, belief, with my, thought. Then you don't take any, informations from that process. Okay, so that people not really approach data neutrally. Okay? They're gonna choose, they're gonna accept, they're going to reject the data based on what they believe. Okay, so that from the perspective of performance management, performance budgeting system, what we can do is trying to limit some kind of the ideological goals, right? Sometimes trying to frame that this is a really neutral, okay? Trying to get rid of some kind of the partisan or ideological beliefs from the performance information, so that people can make a decision more neutrally. Okay? And negative bias is thing is that's the information that I mentioned that, okay? Well, the bad is stronger than the good, okay? So that if you are in the organization, you can see that organizations with a bad result, they try to react more strongly, right? Same as individuals, okay? And one of their behavioral attitude you can see is blame avoidance. What it means? If something negative happens, what do you say? It's not my fault, okay? This is not happening because of me, because someone has already done, right? It's not my responsibilities, okay? So that, well, in public sectors, not only public sectors, in private sector as well, but the organization is trying to find some escape, right? Whoa, this is the person who blame, not me. This is the organization who blame, not me, not my organizations. Okay, so that when you try to make some organizations work to their performance informations, what they can do is, well, they try to focus on problem-solving approaches. Okay, well, you have the problems, then you have to focus on how we're gonna solve. Okay, not just focus on the fact of the being negatives, okay, because they have tendency to trying to escape. So those are some kind of the theoretical things and my researchers, and then some of the examples. Then I'm gonna going to some performance evaluation system in Korean context. Okay, this is the last chapters. One system that I try to explain is for performance evaluation system for public enterprise. Okay, and public enterprise performance evaluation system was established since 1994, and then this is Korean. Oh, I was trying to find some English versions, well, but that's not really nice, so I just copy that Korean versions. What you can see on the red side, you see that S, A, B, C, D, E. This is alphabet letters, right? S means good, right? E means bad. And then they're gonna categorize public agency in each level, okay? What they're gonna do is they set up those kind of systems, so they're gonna annually evaluate the public agencies to S to the E, and then they link to their payment, their salary of the employees in public agencies, so that, for example, well, there's no S for public agencies, okay, but some agency get their S grade. What happening is they're gonna get the extra bonus for like a 1 month's salary, extra bonus, every employee in that public agencies, okay? What about the E? Well, they're not gonna take their money from their salary, but they have the little incentive, little salary increase about in terms of the bonus, okay? And sometimes they're gonna linked with their CEOs, their tenure decisions, meaning that CEO get their E in a couple of years in row, then what happens is he may be fired, she may be fired, right? That's very tough decisions, right? But those kind of system has been, well, first one is created in 1984, and they're gonna changing, modify those system, and then right now they have those annual performance event system. Every year they measure performance, every year they assess, then every year they linked with the reward and sanctions. Okay, next one. So, well, I was interested in that. Well, this is good. I mean, it's good in terms of they're trying to hold accountable for, public employees in the agencies. But, well, every system has some limitations. Every policy has some limitation. What will be? So that's my kind of research questions. I was trying to look at some, think about the public employees. Do they really change their behavior in response to those programs? So that what they're going to do, what I have done is I have some kind of the survey experiment for the targeting for the public employees agencies. And then I gave some kind of the comparisons. Well, meaning that some hypothetical scenarios. Okay, for example, this previous year, your agency got score of their 80s. Your neighboring agency scored 90s. Okay, how do you feel? How do you feel your agency is good? Is good or bad? Okay, sometimes I gave them, historical comparisons. 2 years ago, your agency got the 70 score. This year, last year, you got the 80s. How do you feel? Okay? So that political, sometimes I gave some informations. Okay, politically, you get the agency, upper hierarchical agency, they set the target, and then they said, okay, 80 is good, but you achieved 90s. How do you feel? Okay? And then I ask again that, okay, then do you think you need to change your organizations? Do you need to change your behaviors? Things like that. Okay? So that there are two treatments. One is comparisons, who they're gonna compare, and sometimes is good, sometimes is bad. Okay? Then, well, one of the question is how they're gonna involve in cognitive process. Okay? So, well, this is Korean. Well, I just took from there, but you can see that bottom here, right? So when we have the good positive information, meaning that our agency is good, but there's comparison is different types. Control means they don't have any comparisons. Historical, they give their previous informations so that they are better than the last years. Social, they are better than their neighbors, right? Politicals, what is it? They are better than politically set target. Okay? So from that diagram, we can see that, okay, public managers feel like, wow, we did good in terms of their, political target, right? Well, I think that makes sense, right? Makes sense because, if you think about your individual case, right? And then, well, your boss say, okay, well, this year your target is 90, and then you are better than 90 and 95, and then you feel like, okay, I did great. Right? But compared to others, right? Next one, please. For the negative one, this is interesting, right? Political is not that, lower, meaning that they trying to avoid, they trying to disregard their informations, okay? Looking at the socials, meaning that when they're gonna make a comparison for the socials, okay? They feel like, okay, I think we didn't good well compared to others, right? So there are different types of their socials, okay? Next one, please. So that I try to make a comparison between the positive and negative. And then you can see that in terms of the political, their gap is much higher, right? Next one. And I ask about their, then how much you want to use and then how much you want to change your behaviors, right? Well, as you can see that there are a little, process. As well, when you have the positive informations, people really feel like, changing their behaviors. This is kind of the same as, previous explanation about the bad is stronger than the good. If organization is doing well, and a lot of people just stay as it is, okay? Because I'm good, and I don't have to do anything different. I keep the same things, right? Next one. Then negative informations, as you can see, they feel like they need more stuffs, okay? So it shows that the public, in Korean public agency, public manager, they also, comply to those kind of the, traditional hypothesis, okay? So, and then looking at their, okay? So, findings. We've been through looking at the performance management systems and then how we're gonna using the performance information and then behavioral science and then comparison to the application context. One thing that I can say is, well, people change their behavior depending on what they're gonna make a comparisons, okay? And previous Korean context, what we can do is, when we making comparison with your neighbors, they trying to change more, right? But once you achieve, then maybe you're gonna compare with yourself, right? So that from the public management perspectives, when you're trying to boost your organization, trying to boost individual performance, you're trying to set up whom you're gonna make a comparisons, when you're gonna make a comparisons. Depending on those kind of the system, you may have the different types of the, behavior. So that's one thing you can, take away those kind of the information. Of course, it really depends on the, countries and cases. And the last one that I just wanna make sure is, because we've been seeing that positive information, people do not change in response to positive informations, right? But, well, innovations is coming from their positive information, not the negative information, right? If you look at the history of the innovations across the ages, right? And then we may think about how we're gonna facilitate innovation from the behavior science. That's kind of the one thing maybe we need to think about, okay? So I think those are some kind of a wrap up of my lectures. And then the last one is, I'm happy to get any questions about the, my lecture and maybe K-pop, okay? Thank you.
Yes. Okay. Thank you, Professor Chung, for sharing such valuable insight. Your lecture was truly enlightening and informative. I'm sure we have all gained a lot of knowledge and understanding from his lecture. Let's give Professor Chung another round of applause. Now, it's time to move on to the question and answer session. Feel free to ask any question you may have. Anyone want to ask question?
Okay, can I ask for this? Okay, thank you for the opportunity. My name is Sapan Putri. I want to ask you about, maybe not so close with this lecture, but it's related about, we know that Korean culture right now is well known globally, and as your expertise in public finance management, I want to ask how the Korean government strategic public management in developing or in making strategic in developing Korean culture, because I think must be close to government strategy to make Korean culture become well known, of course. So yeah, maybe you can explain how the government plan and strategic in financial management to try explore and develop Korean culture. Thank you.
Okay, so let me get this straight about your question first. So your question is, what is the current Korean cultures about the public financial management systems? To promote Korean culture. Okay. What do you mean by the Korean cultures? I mean, K-pop. Okay. All right. Well, I should have studied more about how the government is promoting the Korean K-pop cultures. Well, I don't know. Maybe I'm not sure I'm qualified to answer those kind of questions. Okay, but I guess if you look at the history of the government system in Korean context, it's more like a development state, so that the government initiate and they giving some what to do and what not to do to the private sectors, and then they're leading those kind of their industries. Okay, but I think that for the Korean K-pop or success, I guess your question is because K-pop is so successful. What is driving force for that kind of the cultures? I guess for the cases, the government has limited assistance for leading those kind of K-pop culture, because if you look at the K-pop and then if you look at the industries and their private sectors, they really compete for each others, so that some kind of the giving leeways that industries survive, work by themselves. That is kind of their driving to make their government, make their K-pop more successful. And then if you look at the training system of the K-pop cultures, and then they are very highly competitive. So the competitions is kind of the number one reasons to make that successful, I guess. Right. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else want to ask a question?
Sebelumnya izinkan pakai bahasa Indonesia, Ibu, takut kurang ini Inggrisnya gitu. Oke, izin bertanya terkait penganggaran gitu ya, karena di administrasi keuangan publik kita cukup belajar penganggarannya cukup dalam gitu. Nah, terkait penganggaran sendiri, kalau dari pengalaman saya gitu kemarin magang tuh di kantor pajak tuh penganggaran itu sendiri tuh mengikuti penganggaran tahun sebelumnya gitu. Nah, terkait penganggaran ini, apakah misalnya suatu instansi itu kan punya pagu anggaran sendiri yang ditentukan berdasarkan tahun sebelumnya gitu. Namun di sisi lain pun instansi tersebut tuh harus bisa menyerap anggaran yang mereka buat tuh 100% gitu, tapi di satu sisi pun instansi itu dituntut untuk bisa seefektif mungkin menggunakan dana yang ada gitu. Jadi lebih baik untuk memprioritaskan penggunaan dananya ataupun memprioritaskan pagunya agar sesuai dengan anggaran yang sebelumnya gitu, Bu. Terima kasih.
Okay, I think I got to translate. You know, this is I don't know, I'm not really sure if you learned something about the dilemma in Indonesian public budgeting system. So with the system we develop is for public finance, the government actually set up such kind of quota, how much budget, for example, distributed to certain institution. So the government also developed, on the other hand, the government also developed such kind of measurement of performance. So the institution who got the distribution of funding have to make sure they absorb and use all of the money distributed by the government. On the other hand, the government also promoting the government to conduct a more efficient and effective bureaucracy. So this is kind of, the student last time she conducted an intern in one institution, so she's just a bit confused. So which one should be promoted? What kind of system actually more is acceptable? I mean, in theory, which one should be promoted? Whether we should go for the efficiency and effectiveness principle, while on the other hand, the government always said, if you don't use all of the money, then you fail. Yeah, so that's the student think that this is the dilemma. They don't know what is actually the ideal type of budgeting system that actually ensuring the performance, the effectiveness, efficiency, yeah, something like that. Did you get to answer the question? Thank you.
Yeah, well, thank you for your questions. I think first I framing your questions once again. Well, there are two types of their approaches about the public budgeting. Well, one thing is trying to focus on efficiency, so that meaning that given same amount of their budget, and then how much the more the outcome you're gonna achieve, that's kind of their efficiencies. And the other one is if you don't really use the money, then they're gonna take away the monies, right? Well, one thing that I can say here is administration, PA, has multiple goals, right? So that sometimes the goals conflict each other's, right? And then sometimes, well, you have the goals, if you choose one, then you're not able to choose the other ones, okay? So that's the phase of the public administrations. Because if you think about the private sectors, right? Private sector is you have to make the money. One simple goals, right? You don't have to think about the responsibility. You don't have to think about the responsiveness, accountabilities, equities, equality, all those kind of criteria. So, well, you have to think about when these criteria matters, okay? And because it depends on, if you really focus on efficiency, then you have to go for efficiency. And if you go for equality and not using the money, then you're gonna have to go for that kind of phase. So that's kind of the basic question that I can answer. Then next one that I mentioned that is those kind of the allocation systems happenings all the time for even advanced countries of their government as well. Okay, for example, you mentioned that people don't allocate the money and budget, then the usually central fiscal agency they take the money from that agencies, so that what usual line department, what they're gonna do is, they call this is a December fever. Okay, well, if you look at the cycle of the budget cycle, I don't know about the Indonesian government, the fiscal year in Korea starting January, and then they're gonna end the December's. Okay, so that December fevers means that if you don't allocate the money and then your budget will be decreased next years. So what they happening is, in the last months of the budget cycle, budget months, they trying to spend anything, any items, okay? So that one of the typical example is there are a lot of the road constructions in the December, because the road you can change, you can modify, you can renovate road all the time, so that every municipal they trying to do those kind of things, right? So that those are some kind of their inefficient use of the money for budgets. So that some of the government municipality they trying to reduce those kind of problems. What they're gonna do is carryover programs. Do you know about the carryover? It's like if you look at the advertisement about your cell phones, right? Sometimes cell phone use, you're gonna have the monthly, you have the 100-minute use for this month. Carryover plan for a cell phone, for example, if you don't use 100 minutes, you have the 10 minutes left, and then 10 minutes left to carry over to the next month. Same as public budgeting system. Some governments, some municipalities propose that even though you don't use all the monies, you can save, and then you can use that money to next fiscal years. Okay, so that. Well, depending on what criteria you're gonna use, and then you have to make a compensations, make up what will be better options for your, organization and countries. But those kind of, cases will happen to every country of the budget system, I guess. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anyone? Okay. Okay, anyone want to ask? Okay, go ahead.
Hello, Professor. In your presentation, you say bad stronger than good, gitu. And I very love Korean drama, and I know about bullying in younger generation. And the question is, what is government roles in bullying in Korea, especially in changing the behavior of younger generation?
Can you say it again, please?
What the government role in bullying in
bullying?
Korea? Bullying in Korea, especially for changing the behavior younger generation.
Oh, the changing the behavior of the younger generations in public employees, or all young generations. I mean, well, you talk about the employee in the public sector for young people, or anyone in the whole population in Korean young people.
Change the behavior young generation.
Young generation for everyone, every young generations, or in the public sectors, or
Public sector.
public sectors. Okay, yeah. Have you ever heard about the MZ generation, MZ generations, MZ? I think most of the students are here. MZ? Yes? No? Okay. Well, what is? I mean, if you heard about the MZ generations, what is their characteristics of the MZ? Maybe Professor Eder, do you really use the MZ generation in Indonesia? Not really. Not really. Okay. Well, because in Korea, it's kind of the huge issues to motivating the young generations, not only in the public sectors, but also in the general populations, because they trying to identify young generation like MZ. MZ generation, we call this is the person who are born after 1990s. okay, or born after 2000s, okay, they are different. They have very different behaviors. For example, older generations, what they do is they get some kind of their orders. For example, in the public agency, they get the orders, and well, they at least they're gonna do some things, right? But the younger generation, they say, "Why? Me? Now?" That's the three answers. Okay. Do I have to do? Why I have to do? Do I need to do? So those kind of the responses. So that there are huge issues. How are we gonna handle? How are we gonna motivate young generations? So that, well, on top of that, there are huge concerns about the public employees in Korean because the younger generation is pursuing for more monetary incentives rather than some non-monetary incentives. So that how we're going to design the system to attract them, motivate them. So I don't know actually how we're going to motivate the young people. Maybe you are better because as a young person, when you are get the motivate, when you are really feel like I want to do some things. Okay, so but a lot of the folks, a lot of the especially someone who studied the human resource management, what they're gonna emphasize is we have to be approaching to differently toward to young generations. Okay, so that's kind of the ongoing issues in Korean as well, right? And I guess for the public policy issues, and the current government is emphasizing some kind of the younger generation policies because these days the economy is going down and unemployment going up, and well, housing prices high, and education cost is high, so that for the young generations, they don't feel really strong hopes for the futures. So that sometimes they're gonna give up. Sometimes they don't see that their futures correctly. So that well, people keep saying that how are we gonna make them more positive in terms of the work and life and things like that. Okay. Yeah. Hopefully, I can answer your questions.
Okay, thank you, Professor. Professor, we have some online participants too in Zoom. Anyone in Zoom want to ask a question to Professor, maybe? Yeah. Anyone want to ask question in Zoom participant? Please raise your hand. Oh, ada. Okay. Go ahead, Rizky. What's your question?
Okay, first of all, thank you very much for the opportunities. My question is about the performance budgeting and management to
Okay, Rizky, go
collaborate
ahead. What is your question?
with the SDGs. My question is, to what extent does public performance budgeting and management play a critical role in supporting the achievement of the SDGs, particularly in terms of service delivery, anti-corruption, and public investment management?
Okay, Rizky, we couldn't hear you clearly. Could you please to repeat your question and speak a bit slow and clear? Thank you.
How about this? Is this good or not?
Yep.
My question is about the co-elaborate between the public performance budgeting and management with the point of 17 SDGs. To what extent does public performance budgeting and management play a critical role in supporting the achievement of the SDGs, particularly in terms of service delivery, anti-corruption, and public investment management? Thank you.
Okay, so my understanding about the question is public budgeting system, how we can design the public budgeting and management system in terms of the reduce the corruptions, I guess. Is that close?
Yes, yes.
Okay. Well, there are different types of the performance budgeting systems. Okay. One closed system is performance, based budgeting systems. It means that the allocation of the money will depend on the performance itself. For example, okay, you get, for example, for the universities, okay, well, because you are in the universities. If your university have their 30,000 students this year, and then you get the funding from the government, that based on that number of the students, okay, and well, in this case, you're going to define the performance as number of students, okay. So that's the example of the performance-based systems, meaning that make their direct link to the number and the budget and allocations of the monies, okay? And then another case of the performance budgeting system, sometimes we call performance-informed budget. It means that they don't really make a direct connections between performance and budget allocations, but they're gonna have some kind of the open dialogue, open conversations about how they're gonna allocate the monies. Okay, not just directly linked to the performance, but they have some kind of discussions between the government, universities, and then how they're gonna allocate the monies. So that basically they do not really using some specific metrics, specific algebra. Okay, so I guess in terms of the corruptions, well, simple way to control corruption is you're gonna have transparent, metrics between their number and their budgets. Okay, but I think there are some kind of the phases of the performance budgeting system depending on your development process. For in the early period of the performance budgeting system, when you need to control the corruptions, you may need to more transparent and more direct performance budgeting system. But once you are in more advancing toward better system, maybe you're gonna need to move to performance informed system, because a lot of times you're gonna dealing with some kind of the values that cannot be measured in the number, right? Like public values, achieving citizenships, and things like that. So that depending on your status of the organization, so you have to try to assess your stages. Is there still to control the corruptions at this time? Then maybe more transparent and metric-based systems. But later on, you're gonna move on to more qualitative system for government or agency. Okay, I think hopefully I can answer your questions.
Okay, thank you, Professor. Maybe last question. Anyone?
Thank you for the times right now. I have the opinion that in Indonesia right now, the corruption is not proud by the public servant or the others, but the problem is activity that designed by the government through the program is not support to the goals. It is in Indonesia, but how was in the Korean, Mr. Chu, Mr. Chong, okay. How was the Korean problem about the corruption? In Indonesia, in the last time, is corrupt by the employee, government, service, what we call public servant or the others. And the new model is design the activity to achieve the goals is not support. Sometimes we want to make improvement the health, but the activity doesn't support it. How was about your opinion, sir? Thank you.
Okay, I think in terms of the corruptions, well, the problem of corruptions was, very critical back to, I guess, 1960 or 70s in Korean administrations. Okay, so maybe I can answer your questions by what they have done in 1960 and 1970s. Okay, so in order to control for corruptions, what they have done is they try to make everything transparent, right? Transparent to the public, transparent to the citizens, transparent to the everyone's. That's one thing that have done with their system. So they developing some kind of the information systems, so that not only just making transparent, but with their couple with their technologies, so that that transparency is making much available to the public by the information system, like it collect the information more accurately, and then they're gonna reveal the informations to maybe newspapers and metrics, so that they can see that, and then they can assess by the citizens. Okay, and then one of the critical thing, I guess, is matching with the elections, so that because of transparent informations about the government make available to the public, and the public know about what's going on the government, whether they're gonna good and they're gonna bad, and then they're gonna using that information, they're gonna voting for the government. Okay, so those kind of system is circulating, so that it will become more transparent and then lower corruptions. Of course, there are a number of the reform initiatives, not only about those kind of transparencies, but also like they're gonna set the government officials more, professionals, so that they try to detach from the politics. Okay, and then they're gonna giving some tenures, those kind of the information. Maybe they're giving some enough monies for personal systems. With those kind of reform initiative, and then transparency issues make the government control for corruptions, I guess. Okay, I hope your questions answers. Okay.
Is it enough? Okay, thank you, Professor. And with that, we conclude the question and answer session. I hope you all found it informative and clarifying. Last but not least, we move into the photo station and handed over the souvenir that we delivered by Prof. Ida to Prof. Chong.